You'll never make partner, Rebecca. You're just not memorable. The words came out smooth, like he'd rehearsed them, which made it worse. Because this was the same man who once told me I'd be the future of the firm. For a moment, I didn't move. I just stood there in his office, holding the performance review I'd been told would define my next chapter. Apparently, that chapter ended before it began. I didn't cry, not yet. I just nodded like a professional, the way I'd been trained to. But something in my chest went cold. Not angry cold. Hollow cold. Because this wasn't just about a promotion. It was about 5 years of my life, 5 years of proving I was good enough in a place that only ever saw me as convenient. When I walked out of Mark's office that night, the hallway was quiet. Most people had gone home. Down the corridor, the conference room glowed, music, clinking glasses, laughter. The firm was throwing a celebration. For the new partner. I knew before I even opened the door. Todd. Todd, the man who once asked me what pro bono meant during a staff meeting. Todd, who joined 3 years ago and spent most of those years perfecting his golf swing with Mark every Friday at the Lakeshore Club. Todd, who was now raising a glass under the same ceiling where I'd spent half my 30s building someone else's dream. I hovered in the doorway for a second, half hoping someone would wave me in. No one did. They clapped, laughed, toasted. And when Mark caught sight of me, he smiled, the polite kind you give a waiter when they refill your drink. "Here's to Todd," he said, his hand on Todd's shoulder. "Our newest partner and a true people person. This firm's future depends on men like him. Men like him." That's when I slipped away. I walked straight to the women's restroom, locked myself in a stall, and finally let my body react to what my brain had already processed. I didn't sob. It wasn't that kind of cry. It was the silent kind, the kind that tightens your throat until it hurts to breathe. I sat there on the toilet lid, remembering every weekend I'd spent in that office while Mark was on the golf course. Every birthday I'd worked through, every canceled dinner with my sister Emma. She used to tease me, "You're the hardest working ghost in Chicago." And she wasn't wrong. I'd missed her engagement party for a client emergency Mark didn't even remember the next day. I was so loyal, I thought loyalty was a virtue. Turns out, it was a leash. The next morning, I tried to play it cool. Coffee, emails, a fake smile in the break room. Even congratulated Todd. "You deserve it," I said. He actually looked embarrassed for a second, like even he knew he didn't. Later, while everyone else was at lunch, my paralegal, Sophia, slipped into my office. She closed the door and said quietly, "I heard what happened." I nodded, trying to act like it didn't matter. "Guess I wasn't flashy enough." Her voice softened. "You were the only reason half this floor didn't fall apart." I smiled, but it didn't reach my eyes. "Don't worry. I'll be fine." She hesitated, then added, "He told the associates you turned down partner. Said you wanted to focus on work-life balance." That stopped me cold. "He what?" "Yeah," she whispered. "I thought you should know." When she left, I just sat there for a long time, staring at the city through the glass. Chicago stretched out in steel and shadow, sharp, indifferent. It looked exactly how I felt. That evening, I was in Mark's office again. I told myself it was to get closure, but really, I wanted to hear him say it to my face. He was leaning back in his leather chair, scrolling through his phone like he didn't have a care in the world. "I don't understand," I said finally. "I've led our biggest account for 3 years. My numbers are higher than Todd's. Clients ask for me by name. What am I missing?" He sighed, the way you sigh when a child keeps asking why. "You're missing presence, Rebecca. You're reliable, sure, but you don't inspire people. You don't make noise." "Noise?" I repeated. "You mean I don't schmooze?" "Exactly." He smiled, as if I'd just proven his point. "You're excellent at the work, but you don't connect. You don't stand out. I thought results spoke for themselves. He chuckled, like I'd said something naive. You're too focused on merit. That's not how leadership works. You have to be someone people remember. Like Todd. Like Todd, he said, without shame. I looked at him for a long moment, and in that silence, something broke, quietly, neatly. Not like glass. Like a chain. I packed my things that night, just the personal stuff. A photo of me and Emma at the Art Institute, a coffee mug that said future partner, and the framed thank you note from Ryerson Industries, our biggest client. That note used to make me proud. Now it just made me angry. Because I was the one who'd landed Ryerson, the one who built that trust. And Mark knew it. He just didn't care. Before I left, I passed by his office. The door was ajar. On his desk was a presentation folder, my proposal for Ryerson's expansion case. But the cover page didn't have my name. It had Todd's. I stood there for a long second, staring at it. My throat tightened, but not from sadness. From clarity. That's when I stopped feeling small. 2 days later, we had the Ryerson meeting. Todd led it, or tried to. He fumbled his slides, confused his notes, and by the 10-minute mark, the CEO, David Ryerson, looked about ready to walk out. Is Rebecca here? He asked sharply. I unmuted. Yes. Good. Take over. Todd froze. Mark's jaw tightened. I smiled politely and walked them through the entire proposal from memory, concise, logical, bulletproof. When I finished, David nodded. That's why we work with you, Rebecca. You're the brains of this operation. The call ended in silence. Todd looked like he wanted to vanish. Mark didn't even look at me. But I wasn't angry anymore. I was done begging people to see me. I was already visible, just not to the people who deserved my work. That night, after everyone left, I stayed late one last time. I walked through the empty hallways, the hum of the exit lights, the faint echo of my heels on the marble. And I realized something that felt like oxygen rushing back into my lungs. I wasn't angry because I lost something. I was angry because I gave everything, and they never earned it. That's when I knew I was leaving. Not quietly. Not broken. Strategically. I looked at the city through the glass, all those lights, all that power. And I whispered to myself, if they think I'm invisible, they're not looking hard enough. Because here's the thing about being underestimated, it makes you dangerous. They thought they'd shut a door. They didn't realize I was already building my own. And I already knew who my first client would be. Ryerson Industries. I didn't show up for work the next Monday. Not because I wanted to make a statement, but because I couldn't bring myself to put that ID badge around my neck ever again. For the first time in 5 years, my inbox filled without me. And no one noticed. I sent one short email to HR, taking a temporary leave for personal reasons, and signed it with my full name, like a stranger. Within 10 minutes, I got an automated reply, your request has been approved. Not from Mark, not from anyone on the leadership team. Just a computer. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had given that place my heart, and when I finally stepped away, the only goodbye I got was from an algorithm. I moved out of my River North apartment 2 days later. It was all glass and gray, the kind of place that looked good in real estate listings but didn't feel like home. I boxed everything up, sorted my life into 3 piles, keep, donate, forget. Most of it fell into the last one. I didn't realize how much of my identity was wrapped up in that office, the firm-branded folders, the designer suits, the endless cups of conference room coffee. Without them, I didn't know who I was. Just Rebecca Allen, 36, exhausted, and untethered. My sister Emma helped me move into a tiny sublet in Lincoln Park, old hardwood floors, creaky windows, the kind of place where you can hear your neighbor sneeze. It was humble, but it was quiet. The first night, I lay awake on a borrowed mattress, staring at the ceiling, waiting for an email from Mark. Some part of me still believed he'd reach out, maybe say, "You're too valuable to lose." But there was nothing. Not that night, not the next, not ever. 2 weeks later, I ran into Sophia, my old paralegal, outside a lunch spot near the Loop. She froze when she saw me, like she'd just spotted a ghost. "Rebecca," she whispered. You're alive." I laughed softly. "Barely." She looked over her shoulder before leaning closer. "Mark told the associates you needed time to rethink your commitment level. He's acting like you burned out or had some kind of breakdown." My chest tightened. "Of course he is." "I'm sorry," she said. "He's been awful lately. Snapping at people, micromanaging Todd. Everyone's terrified." I smiled faintly. "They'll survive." "Maybe," she said. "But Ryerson's legal team called yesterday. They wanted you on a compliance review, and Mark told them you were taking time off indefinitely." The CFO didn't sound happy. I froze mid-sip of my coffee. Ryerson was my account. The one I'd built from scratch. I just nodded slowly and said, "Thanks for telling me." But inside, a small spark lit. It wasn't satisfaction, not yet. It was the first flicker of clarity I'd had since the day Mark shut that door on me. That night, I sat at Emma's kitchen table while her toddler napped in the next room. She poured us both tea and said, "You look lighter, somehow." "Do I?" "You do. But I can tell you're thinking." I laughed. "I'm always thinking." She tilted her head. "About getting even?" "About getting right," I said quietly. "There's a difference." For a few weeks, I tried to live like a normal person. I went to the gym in the mornings. Took long walks by the lake. Read novels I hadn't touched in years. For the first time, I could hear my own thoughts without the hum of obligation drowning them out. And yet, that quiet came with guilt. I'd built my identity around being needed. Now that no one needed me, who was I? I picked up a few freelance consulting projects through a contact from law school, smaller businesses who couldn't afford the big firm rates. It felt strange at first, negotiating directly with clients instead of through partners. They actually listened to me. They didn't question my fees or take credit for my ideas. And as weeks turned into months, something unexpected happened. I started to enjoy my work again. But peace never lasts long in stories like mine. One evening, as I was leaving a meeting, I got a call from Sophia. Her voice was low, urgent. "I shouldn't even be saying this, but you need to know, Ryerson's threatening to pull their account." I stopped dead on the sidewalk. "What?" "They've lost confidence in Todd. He messed up the compliance timeline, and now their audit's behind." David Ryerson asked where you were again. I took a slow breath, trying to keep my tone neutral. "And what did Mark say?" "That you weren't coming back. That you'd had enough of corporate law." I felt heat rise to my face. "He said that?" "He's rewriting the story, Rebecca. He's pretending you quit because you couldn't handle the stress." I closed my eyes. "Thanks, Sophia." She hesitated. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," I said. "But tell me something, how's he really doing?" There was a pause, then she whispered, "He looks tired. And scared." That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake listening to the city hum outside, thinking about Mark, about how easily he had erased me, how effortlessly he'd rewritten the narrative. Rebecca couldn't hack it. That's what he'd tell people. That's what they'd believe. For the first time, anger didn't feel like fire. It felt like focus. The next morning, I opened my laptop and created a folder called Allen and Associates. It was supposed to be just a name, a fantasy, a placeholder for an idea I wasn't ready to admit out loud. But as I typed it, I realized I meant it. The words looked right together. Solid. Honest. Mine. I spent the next few weeks quietly building. I registered the LLC, bought the domain, set up a basic site, nothing flashy, just clean and professional. Then I started calling a few trusted contacts. One of them was my old mentor from law school, a retired judge named Helen Gordon. She'd always said I reminded her of herself when she was younger, stubborn, idealistic, maybe too patient for my own good. When I told her what happened, she was silent for a long moment. Then she said, "I warned you about men like Mark." "I know. They use loyalty like a leash. When it breaks, they panic." "What are you planning?" "Starting something new." "Good," she said simply. "And Rebecca?" "Yeah?" "Don't just make it a firm. Make it a lesson." Her words stayed with me. By late fall, I had my first few clients, small ones, but steady. And every check that cleared into my business account felt like oxygen. I wasn't rich yet. Some months, I barely covered rent. But I was free. And freedom has its own kind of wealth. Then, one Thursday afternoon, as I was finalizing a contract, I got an email from an unknown address. The subject line read, "Confidential, inquiry regarding representation." I hesitated, then opened it. "Rebecca. This message is off record. I wanted to reach out discreetly to see if you're currently accepting new clients. We're reviewing our external counsel arrangements and would value your perspective. If you're open to a conversation, please call me directly. David Ryerson, CEO, Ryerson Industries." I read it 3 times before it sank in. My heartbeat was loud in my ears. I leaned back in my chair and stared at the screen. David Ryerson. The same man who'd once told Mark, "She's the reason we stay with your firm." I picked up my phone, ready to call him, but stopped. Not yet. Timing mattered. That night, I went to meet Sophia again at our usual bookstore cafe. She slid into the chair across from me, her eyes wide. "Something's happening," she whispered. "Mark's been in closed-door meetings all week. Todd looks like he's about to crack." I stirred my coffee slowly. "Do they know?" She frowned. "Know what?" "That Ryerson's already called me." Her eyes went huge. "You're kidding." I smiled faintly. "No. But don't worry, I haven't replied." "Why not?" "Because I want them to panic first." We sat there for a moment, just listening to the quiet buzz of the cafe around us. Sophia leaned forward. "You're playing this carefully, aren't you?" I nodded. "Mark once told me I wasn't memorable. Let's see how memorable I can be when his biggest client walks out the door." Sophia exhaled, half in awe, half in fear. "You're really doing it?" "Oh, I'm just getting started," I said softly. "He hasn't even realized the board's going to hear about the audit failure. When they do, they'll start asking who was responsible for Ryerson's account before Todd took over. And they'll find my name all over the files." She blinked. "You sound almost calm about it." "I am calm. That's what makes it worse for him." As we walked out into the cold night, my phone buzzed with a new notification. A LinkedIn alert. Mark Whitmore commented on Todd McAllister's post, "Proud to have you on the team, partner. The best is yet to come." I stared at the glowing screen, the photo of the two of them grinning like they'd conquered something. Then I typed a message to Sophia and hit send. "Enjoy it while it lasts." The email wasn't a mistake. Sophia sent it to me on purpose. She didn't say that, of course, but I knew her phrasing too well. "Thought you might find this interesting." And attached to it, a confidential memo straight from the partners' inboxes. The subject line read, "Ryerson confidence risk, immediate action required." I didn't open it right away. I just stared at the name, Ryerson, glowing on my screen in that familiar serif font. The same client that had built Mark's reputation, the same one that had practically been mine for years. I sipped cold coffee and finally clicked it open, knowing I couldn't unsee what was inside. It was worse than I expected. Missed filings, unanswered emails, regulatory inconsistencies, all under Todd's leadership. At the bottom was a note written by one of the senior partners: "Client has expressed loss of confidence. Recommend immediate review or reassignment." Reassignment. They were losing Ryerson, and Mark was scrambling. I sat there in my small Lincoln Park office, surrounded by unpacked boxes and cheap IKEA furniture, feeling something strange mix in my chest, a tangle of anger, justice, and exhaustion. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, yet it didn't feel victorious. Not yet. It felt heavy. Because I knew how easily men like Mark slipped away from consequences. I had to make sure this time he didn't. I saved the file to an encrypted drive, then called Sophia. She answered on the second ring, whispering. "Did you get it?" I did. "I can't keep sending you stuff like this," she said. "It's getting tense around here." "He's paranoid. He keeps asking who's been talking to you." "Let him ask," I said quietly. "He won't find anyone brave enough to admit they still believe in me." Sophia exhaled. "Rebecca, be careful." "I always am." When we hung up, I sat for a long time, just watching the city through my window. Allen and Associates had started to feel like something real now, not just a name on paper. I had 3 steady clients, a paralegal working remotely from Michigan, and a single-room office on Clark Street with a view of a parking lot I was oddly proud of. Every invoice that cleared made me feel like I was reclaiming a piece of myself. But freedom also came with its own brand of fear. Some nights, when the phones were quiet and the streets hummed below, I'd look at the framed letter on my wall, my first ever win at the firm, the one Mark had once signed with the words, "You make this place better." I had kept it because I wanted to believe it was true. Now I kept it because it reminded me how easily people rewrite stories when they need to feel superior. That thought haunted me more than I liked to admit. There were moments I caught myself wondering if I'd made a mistake walking away. What if I'd stayed and fought? What if I'd played their game better, joined the golf outings, pretended to laugh at their jokes, become memorable in the ways that mattered to men like Mark? Then I'd look around my small office, at the freedom in the clutter, and remind myself that I had already won something they never would: peace. But peace doesn't last long. Not in stories like this. A few weeks later, Sophia sent me another message. "You should know, Ryerson's CFO just escalated their complaints. They demanded to speak to Mark directly." "What did he say?" "He blamed you." I went still. "What?" She sighed. "He told them you left the account in disarray before quitting. That he's been trying to repair your mistakes." The world seemed to tilt for a second. "He said that on record?" "Yes." "And Rebecca," he sounded convincing. I didn't respond right away. I just stared at my reflection in the window, pale, calm, too calm, while fury burned quietly beneath the surface. After a moment, I said softly, "Thank you for telling me." When the call ended, I walked outside into the biting Chicago wind and let it sting the tears I didn't want to shed. That was the first time I felt something close to panic since leaving. I'd built everything on integrity, not just as a professional, but as a person. And now the same man who'd taken my work was trying to steal my name. I wanted to storm into that office, to make him look me in the eye and explain how he justified rewriting my legacy. But I knew better. This wasn't the time to react. This was the time to record. To document. To wait. That night, I met with my accountant, Deshawn, at a quiet bar near Wacker Drive. He'd already been auditing the public filings connected to Mark's firm. When he saw me, he didn't waste time with pleasantries. "You weren't exaggerating," he said. "They're cutting corners everywhere. It's not just Ryerson. They've been billing under multiple partner codes for the same work. That's a compliance risk if anyone audits them." I nodded slowly. "You're sure?" "Absolutely. It's sloppy, Rebecca. They're desperate." I took a slow sip of my drink. "Keep digging. I don't need dirt. I need proof." Deshawn smiled faintly. "You're a dangerous woman when you're calm." The next few days unfolded like dominoes. Sophia told me that Todd had messed up a filing for another client, a minor one, but visible enough to make the partners nervous. Then, out of nowhere, I received an email from a junior associate named Priya, someone I'd barely spoken to before. "Hi Rebecca. You don't know me well, but I wanted to say something quietly. The rumors about Ryerson are true, they're considering leaving. Everyone here knows you built that account. Some of us wish we could follow you. You didn't deserve what happened. Please don't forget there are still people inside who respect you. Priya." I read it 3 times, then set it aside. I didn't need her to follow me. I just needed people to remember who I really was when the truth came out. That weekend, I met David Ryerson for coffee. No assistants, no lawyers, no pretense. He arrived on time, the way powerful men do when they want to appear humble. We sat in the back corner of a cafe near Michigan Avenue, away from prying eyes. He started the conversation. "You've seen the reports." "I have." He studied me over his coffee. "Mark says you're the reason our audit fell behind." I met his gaze evenly. "Then Mark is lying." His mouth twitched. "I thought so." His explanations didn't line up. His team's been scrambling for months. "Frankly, Rebecca, I've lost confidence." I leaned forward. "Then maybe it's time you stop giving loyalty to people who treat competence like a threat." He chuckled softly, almost admiringly. "You've changed." "No," I said. "I just stopped apologizing." He nodded once. "If we were to move representation, would you be able to handle it?" "Yes." "No hesitation?" "None." He sat back and smiled. "Good. Expect an email." That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak in my apartment sounded like a ticking clock. I'd been waiting for this, but now that it was coming, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: fear. What if I wasn't ready? What if I failed? The stakes weren't just professional anymore, this was personal. This was about reclaiming my name, my credibility, my place in the world I had built from nothing. I got out of bed and started pacing. My heart was pounding hard enough that I could hear it. "You've handled worse," I told myself under my breath. "You've survived worse." But the truth was, I'd never faced a man like Mark with nothing to lose. And desperate men are dangerous. The next morning, I went into the office early and drafted a single press release template. It wasn't to publish yet, just to have ready. It read: Allen & Associates is proud to announce the onboarding of a major corporate client transitioning from Whitmore and Leeds. Our firm is committed to restoring trust through integrity, precision, and client-first leadership. I didn't sign it. I just saved it to my desktop, closed the file, and waited. By Thursday, it happened. It started with a message from Sophia at 9:02 a.m. Check your inbox now. I opened my email, and there it was, a forwarded message from David Ryerson to Mark Whitmore and the firm's leadership, formally terminating their engagement. The subject line read, "Termination of Representation Agreement, effective immediately." And there, CC'd quietly at the bottom of the thread, was my name. Rebecca Allen. No title. No note. No explanation. Just presence. Sophia texted again seconds later, "He saw it. He's losing it. He's shouting in the hallway." I stared at the screen, heartbeat steady, the words blurring slightly as the gravity settled in. After months of silence, months of planning, the shift had happened. For the first time, I smiled, not the brittle kind I used to fake for partners, but something small and real. I whispered to the empty room, "You said I'd never make partner. You were right. I made something better." The email CC'd me, and I knew Mark saw it, at exactly 9:17 a.m. At 9:36 a.m., Sophia messaged me, "He just ran out of the meeting room mid-presentation." I didn't have to ask which meeting it was. It was the monthly all hands, the one where Mark liked to stand in front of everyone and declare how solid our client relationships are and how far we've come. I could picture him there, clicker in hand, that smug little half-smile, running through client retention charts, right up to the moment when the Ryerson termination landed in his inbox like a grenade. And the CC. My name. There, cold and silent at the bottom of the thread. That's what did it. That's what cracked him open. But I wasn't done. Because this wasn't about one client walking. This was about pulling the loose thread he never thought would matter, and watching the entire suit unravel. I had the rest lined up, the affidavit from Jonathan, the flagged invoices Deshawn had uncovered, the anonymous tip that had quietly landed in the inbox of a respected legal columnist. Not slander. Not speculation. Just facts. Documented. Timestamped. Legally sound. And by the time I walked into the lobby of the downtown courthouse that afternoon for a routine filing, I had no idea I was about to witness the second domino fall, live. The clerk handed me back my copies, and I turned to leave when I saw him, Mark, standing near the security checkpoint, jaw clenched, tie loose, phone pressed hard to his ear. I didn't mean to slow down, but my feet just stopped. He was arguing with someone. Loudly. Desperately. No, we've already responded to the notice. We said we're cooperating. That doesn't mean we're admitting fault, for God's sake. People were watching. One of the security guards raised an eyebrow. I don't care what she said to Ryerson's board, she doesn't run this city. I built that account. I kept them happy for years. She was just, he cut himself off, eyes flicking to me. I was still. He froze. The call didn't matter anymore. The noise drained out of the moment. It was just us. I walked past him without a word. Just a glance. Calm. Complete. Behind me, I heard him say, quieter now, I have to go. Back in my office, I sat down and opened the press release I'd drafted weeks earlier. It had sat untouched in my folder, waiting for the moment I wasn't sure would ever come. I added a single paragraph. Then I hit send. That afternoon, the legal press ran with it. Allen and Associates secures major corporate client Ryerson Industries amid shakeups at Whitmore and Leeds. I didn't read the full article. I didn't need to. I just opened the statement and let my eyes rest on one sentence. We look forward to a future defined by clarity, integrity, and the people who actually do the work. That line had been mine. Entirely mine. But it wasn't all smooth. Not everything fell in place like clockwork. 2 days later, Mark fought back. Deshawn forwarded me a letter their firm's lawyer had sent to the audit committee, claiming the leak of internal billing practices had been coordinated by a former employee with a known personal grudge. They didn't name me, but it was obvious who they meant. The letter hinted at legal action. Accusations of defamation. Potential violations of the confidentiality agreement. For about 30 seconds, my hands shook. The fight-or-flight part of me flared, flashing red. I'd built everything carefully, but one wrong word, one wrong move, and I could lose everything I'd built. I paced my office. Then I sat. Then I opened my email archive, pulled out the original agreement I'd signed, forwarded it to my attorney, and wrote, "Do they have a case?" He replied 15 minutes later. "You're fine. They're bluffing. But document everything." That's all I needed. I saved the email, printed it, and added it to the growing file marked Fallout. The next 72 hours were a blur. More clients called me, some looking to leave the firm quietly, others just testing the waters. Sophia told me 2 associates had already quit. And then the article hit. The one we knew was coming. Exclusive, Whitmore and Leeds under internal review following high-profile client loss. The journalist hadn't held back. They'd included timelines, the Ryerson departure, the audit requests, even hints about the double billing accusations. Nothing libelous. Everything substantiated. The photo they used was a stock image of Mark from 2 years ago, standing at a podium, mouth mid-sentence, looking like he was swallowing the truth sideways. I didn't laugh. I just forwarded the link to my team. Subject line: we stay quiet. We keep moving. That was our motto now. We didn't gloat. We didn't tweet. We built. The call came at 6:02 p.m. on a rainy Thursday. I recognized his number instantly. I almost let it ring out. Almost. But this time I wanted to hear it. Rebecca. His voice was tired. Different. No edge. Mark. I guess congratulations are in order. You guess? Another pause. You're winning. That's clear. But you didn't need to bring the whole firm down to do it. I leaned back in my chair. You're still worried about the firm? I gave 20 years to that place. So did I said flatly. Except you cashed the credit while I did the work. He sighed. I'll admit it. I misjudged you. I didn't think you'd last 6 months out on your own. I didn't think you'd last 6 months without me, I replied, then let the silence hang. He swallowed, audibly. You've made your point. I get it. You won. I shook my head, not that he could see it. Mark, you still don't get it. This was never about winning. This was about showing you I was never the assistant. I was the engine. And you? You were the paint job. That landed. I heard it. He started to say something, but I interrupted him, just once. You said I'd never make partner, I said quietly. You were right. I didn't. I made a firm. One that doesn't need men like you to survive. Then I ended the call. That night, for the first time in a year, I went to bed without checking my email. I didn't dream about courtrooms or memos or slammed doors. I slept like someone who had nothing left to prove. The next month, we signed 2 new clients. Hired a 4th associate. Opened a 2nd floor. I got business cards printed with my name at the top, Rebecca Allen, managing partner. Sophia walked into my office one morning with coffee and said, "You know what we should do?" I raised an eyebrow. We should start taking meetings at that golf club he used to brag about. I laughed. Only if we wear sneakers. Done. On a random Tuesday, I walked past the Whitmore and Leeds building. I didn't go in. I didn't stop. I just glanced up. And for a moment, I saw it, the shadow of who I'd been inside that place. A woman with her head down, her mouth closed, her work stolen. Then I kept walking. Because that woman didn't live there anymore. She built her own damn office. And her name was on the door.